So times change. Sometimes it's so there's all sorts of other alternatives. So press I think is one, but also if you're just trying to establish an audience quickly and you're trying to get a small group of people that are really into the idea and you can sort of onboard them and keep them in the net, that's a good way to tackle it too.
Nice.
Oh, and also publishers. That it helps to if you've shown that there's a demand for the game.
Yeah.
And you go to a publisher and they're like trying to figure out if your game is actually worth investing money into. Well, people are already interested,
right.
So that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, they're definitely looking for a way to mitigate risk.
Yeah, absolutely,
for sure. All right, and how do you guys, Skymap, plan to stay ahead of the curve and continue to stand out among the crowd? Because we have Bacon Man. I know that you guys are doing a lot of other different types of projects and stuff. I guess this is kind of like future stuff. But what are you guys doing to just stay ahead of the curve?
Our future looks a lot like is a lot of aligning relationships. So we have made a few strategic partnerships with other companies that we're looking forward for long-term games that we wanted to make with them that might not be out for 2-3 years in some cases. So that's one piece of it. The other is leveraging the connections that we've been making through things like contract development and porting and all these other works to try to get the attention of the right people, so that if we did decide to go back into a full-fledged original game development cycle again soon, which we would like to, finding people who can help on those types of projects is vital. And sometimes that's capital, sometimes that's human resources, whatever it might be.
Right. Yeah. So, and I think that's good to kind of think that way, because a lot of times, whether it's small studios or especially just indie devs as a whole, they're not necessarily thinking from that perspective or have that outlook in place. And that's one thing I try to impress upon sometimes too with people is how do you stand as a brand or what you want to represent and what are your goals? And yes, it's early to even think about that big picture thinking if you're just starting your first game or whatever, but at least having that that kind of the insight a little bit or thinking to spend a little bit of bandwidth behind, I think can help you kind of aim a little bit, shoot a little bit further.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think to the point, one of the things you said was especially if it's one of your first games,
right?
We did not come out of AAA. We came out of a college dorm, and that was how we started making games. So there's a lot of education that happens working for other companies and seeing how they market and seeing how they align and working together as a team and working under pressure that you learn a tremendous amount. If you look at a lot of the successful games that are coming out in the indie space right now, especially the ones that are backed by more substantial, publishers,
right?
They've probably had some degree of development experience in the past, and they've worked in other companies. Not all of them. I recognize that there's the Stardew Valleys of the world exist, right? But those are very unusual, and there's far more games that are like that fail than succeed. And they don't talk about the failures.
Right.
So the thing to keep in mind is if there's an opportunity to go and work with someone who's really experienced and learn that perspective, that is a lot more valuable than hopping into the ring in Kickstarter and just taking a shot and hoping that you get something that succeeds. It seems like get a little education first and then go in and make a decision about how you want to fund your game. That helps a lot.
Yeah, because it's really about. It's funny. This has been. I've been working on a project recently and talking to a lot of devs, and that I've noticed has been a very common theme in terms of what people define as a means for success. Essentially, is really getting that experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
On all facets, not just like game development, but process and how to scale things and boots on the ground type deal, like every aspect of it.
You just got to go through the process of making something from start to finish. If you haven't done that, there's a lot that is lost when you're going to, try to raise funds or whatever it might be. It doesn't matter if it's Kickstarter, it doesn't matter if it's hiring or looking for help or coming up with a game concept. Experience really does make a difference. And yeah, it's okay. It's okay to not have your first game be, don't have your first game be your magnum opus, right? It's not going to be. Nope. Focus on helping other people and see what that process looks like. And then when you're ready, go for it.
Nice. All right, man. Well, we covered a lot. So before we wrap up here, what would you, what would you say are a few key points that, you would offer to some indie devs and how they could, leverage this information to standing out for a Kickstarter or more importantly, just standing out as a whole?
Yeah. I think there's a few things I'd look at. One is have a very distinct art style. We didn't talk about that, but that helped Bacon Man a lot. It's helping a lot of other games is have something that looks totally as unique as you can get it. The second is look at the weird periphery of your project and think if there's any ways that you can take advantage of similar industries or things like that. So, for example, I never would have gone after Denny's. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Right.
We got lucky that they came to us. But I think more, man, I should have contacted the restaurant industry blogs because that probably would have, we got some of those, but we would have gotten a lot more of that if we'd thought of it.
Like Guy Ritchie.
Yeah, absolutely. Those Frosted Tips. What's his name? You know what I'm talking about. I mean, there's like so many. There's so many different industries and things around the periphery. So that would be something good to look at. And also, Kickstarter is not necessarily. Don't really think about Kickstarter necessarily as a financial. As a point of financial success, it might be that you have other goals that you can tackle by using a Kickstarter campaign and then leveraging that. But not necessarily, Kickstarter is not necessarily going to fund your whole game. I mean, $21,000 or whatever it was for Bacon Man certainly did not fund Bacon Man. Like, it was a long project, and it was, one that was funded by contract development. So. Something to keep in mind. Those indie darlings are out there. You get those Kickstarters with $500,000 and, but look who makes those and, take a step back and sort of evaluate like what are the key points of what that are making these things so successful. And usually the development team has a lot of experience, prior experience. So food for thought.
Nice. Right, man. Well, definitely appreciate your time. This is, very insightful in what you had to offer. But before we go, I just, want to know, like, if, in case people want to reach out to you or anything like that, or find out more about Bacon Man, how can they do that? How can they talk to you or buy Bacon Man? Yeah, so Bacon Man is on Steam. We have some console announcements coming in the near future. Okay, nice. So excited about that. Game came out about a year ago, so that's about as much time. You can get it on Steam now. You can go to skymapgames.com. You can see some of the games that we're working on, our own projects, but also our partner projects. I'm available through the contact form there. That gets in touch with me right away. And my Twitter is @NealNito, or you can do @SkymapGames, and I keep my eyes on both of those. All right, sweet. And we'll make sure to throw those in the show notes as well, too. Thank you. All right, man. Well, definitely appreciate your time, and hope you have a great rest of your evening. Thanks. You too, Andrew. All right, thanks.
Hey, everybody, and thanks again for listening to Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. Hey, if you want to check out the show notes for this episode, feel free to do so by going to indiegamemovement.com. And I just want to thank our podcast producer, Mustafa Price, and give a special thanks to Taisuke Kimura, who composed the theme, and Donnie Wilson for the logo design. Just really appreciate your help and hard work, guys. If you have any questions or suggestions for the podcast, feel free to email us at igm@rengenmarketing.com. Rengen Marketing is a company that I co-founded that provides consulting services to indie devs. And on our website, we also provide really helpful, in-depth content on our blog. And we also have a free marketing plan template that you guys can use for your next game. So thanks again for listening right here on Indie Game Movement.